It's good for you now?
It's perfect for me now.
Okay.
So hello, everyone. Greetings to you all from Virginia. It's nice and cold here, and I doubt that you have the kind of wintry weather that we still have here. I've never been to your city. I know it's gorgeous, and someday maybe that can happen. But I send my warmest regards, as do my faculty from the Forensic Science program here at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. If someone could click to the next slide, please. Thank you. Let me introduce myself. I'm Mary Ellen O'Toole. I'm the director of the Forensic Science program at George Mason University, and I've been the director for about 8 years now. And prior to becoming the director, I was an FBI agent and an FBI profiler. And in that job, I learned how important it was to bring together all the forensic sciences when you're trying to understand a crime scene and you're trying to understand offender motivation. You have to understand why physical evidence was left at the scene. You have to understand what that physical evidence is. You have to understand, can we process it? And then you have to know how to understand what that tells you about the offender. So in our program, we have the ability, because of the expertise of our faculty, to train our students to look at a crime scene from every perspective so that they can understand not just the physical evidence that's left at the scene, but that they can understand the offender's behavior as well. So George Mason University is a large and beautiful university with multiple campuses in Northern Virginia. The campus where our offices are located are in Fairfax, Virginia. We are about 10 miles west of Washington, D.C. So we're considered a metropolitan campus, or a very urban campus. Can you click to the next slide, please? Thank you. This is another campus for our university. It's called our Science and Technology Campus. And within the next 2 or 3 years, the entire forensic science program will be moving to Manassas, Virginia. But right now, we do have some of our classrooms located out there, and some of our forensic laboratories are out there. And one of the initiatives you'll hear me talk about here in a few minutes is one of our newest and most unusual initiatives, our laboratories, and it is located right here behind the buildings that you're looking at. And this is called our Forensic Science Anthropological Research Laboratory. That's a lot, but the acronym for it, it's called the Body Farm. And we will be the 8th university in the world that has a body farm. Our first donor will be placed in about a month out there. And when I get to that slide where I talk about our initiatives, I'll explain to you what we want to do with the research and the teaching out at the body farm. Can you move to the next slide, please? Let me tell you a little bit about George Mason. It's a new university, and it was started in 1949. So again, we're very new, but we're already considered a Tier 1 research university. That's the highest level of research standing that a university can hold. And because of that, throughout the university, professors are expected to bring in grant money, and just very important research. And because of that, we're trying to establish a lot of our own forensic science research in our program. We're the most diversified university in the Commonwealth or the state of Virginia. And throughout the entire, all of our campuses, we have approximately 38,628 students. So that's a lot of students, and they come from all over the world. We have students from everywhere you can imagine. And when they come together in my classrooms and in our meetings, and they talk about their backgrounds and their experiences, it's the most fantastic display and sharing of ideas. And for me, this is one of our strengths. This is one of our strengths of our program, is that we have so many different students from so many different backgrounds that are studying to be forensic scientists. And again, some of the ideas and perspectives that they bring to the program and to what we're trying to do is absolutely incredible. Now, here's one thing you might find quite interesting. I find it very interesting. About 85% of our forensic science students are females. Yes, 85% are females. And that's pretty consistent. In the United States, we have a lot of crime scene shows. And these shows portray different crime cases that have taken place throughout the United States. And the vast majority of the audiences for those programs are also females. So I've not done a research project on it. I can just tell you that women in particular are very interested in how to solve a crime. And again, most of my students are females. The next slide, please. So let me tell you a little bit more about our forensic science program. Next slide, please. We have a master's program, and we have an undergraduate program. Our master's program was actually started first, and that began in 2008. And then our undergraduate program began in 2011. Right now, you'll see the numbers in a bit. We have approximately 425 undergraduate students who are working for their bachelor's degree, and we have 75 graduate students who are working for their master's level. We do not at this point have a PhD. In the United States, to work in the field of forensics, most of the time you're required to have a master's degree, and that's generally the highest degree a student will obtain. There are several universities now in the United States that offer a PhD in forensic science, but it's not required unless you're in a very specific major. So for example, in Virginia, if you wanted to be a forensic toxicologist, that would require a PhD. But generally speaking, the terminal degree is a master's degree. We offer courses that are very different. We offer courses that are very current in the field of forensics. And we have 4 different concentrations at the master's level. So with the undergraduate courses, a student generally takes your basic math, your biology, your chemistry, your physics, and then their junior year and their senior year, they start to take their forensic courses. And recently we've started forensic courses in crime scene investigation, in forensic biology and forensic chemistry. We have some new courses that we're adding this year, and I'll tell you a little bit about those. But it's our graduate courses where a student can come in and they can decide to focus on one of the 4 areas on the screen. They can focus on crime scene investigation, and that means that's a student that once they graduate, they want to go out to the crime scenes with the detectives, and they want to process the crime scene. They want to collect the evidence, They want to package the evidence and then take it to the laboratory where that evidence is then analyzed by either by a trained forensic analyst. That is our most popular concentration, is crime scene investigation. We have forensic biology, and these are students, graduate level students, master's level, who want to become DNA analysts, and they want to work in a forensic laboratory, like they want to work for the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. They may want to work for the Department of Homeland Security in one of their forensic labs, but they want to work doing analysis in a laboratory. The next category is forensic chemistry, and these are students that focus on taking those courses in forensic chemistry at the master's level that will allow them to work again in a forensic lab doing chemistry analysis. And then a new one we added about 5 years ago is biometrics, facial recognition, fingerprint analysis. That's a new and upcoming concentration in the United States. And it's absolutely growing in its popularity. Next slide, please. Thank you. Again, I think I mentioned that we have 450 undergraduate majors and minors, about 400 majors at the undergraduate level, and about 25 students who have a different major, but they minor in forensic science. And our growth is about 125 undergraduate students a year. Since I've come to the program, we have grown exponentially, and I'll tell you what the reasons are, I think, here in a moment. But we're one of the fastest growing programs in the United States. We have 75 students at the master's level, and we have some new initiatives that we will be implementing, and I think that's going to be important to the growth of the master's program. So the courses that we teach, you can go to the next slide, thank you. The courses that we focus on are, again, focusing on the forensic biology, the forensic chemistry, the biometrics, and the crime scene investigation. And what we have learned over the years is that our students, when they come to George Mason, they want to do more than just read books on forensic science. They want to put their hands on the GCMS. They want to be able to understand and work with a sequencer. They want to be able to go into a house, not a classroom, but a house, and really learn how to collect blood evidence. They want to look at what is blood spatter. They want to collect fingerprints and do it the right way. So we have learned over the years that having that hands-on component in our courses is really extremely important to the growth of our program. If you could go to the next slide, please. So to me, as I was thinking about this and sharing this afternoon with you, I thought, what is the strength of George Mason's program? And I think we have three different areas that really make us a strong and very popular program. And that's the background and the experience of the faculty. Soon we will have 10 full-time forensic faculty, and all of our faculty have worked in the field. What does that mean? They have all come from backgrounds where they've worked for a law enforcement agency or a forensic laboratory working cases. They've actually been out working cases. So that experience brings so much into the classroom. We also have approximately 15 adjunct professors. These are professors that teach the graduate courses at night in our master's program. In the day, what they're doing is they're working in laboratories or going to crime scenes in the day. So they bring that practical experience to the classroom, and our students love that. So when I teach 2 courses right now, and I have a course on critical thinking. in forensic science, and I teach my students how to analyze a very complicated crime scene. And I teach them how to break it down and to look for the elements of a crime and understand it through the forensics and understand it through the behavior. But when I talk about cases, I talk about cases that I was actually out on. I talk about cases where I actually interviewed the offender, or I interviewed the serial killer myself, or I talked to the parents, or I went to the crime scene, or I talked to the pathologist, the medical examiner in person. So I bring that into the classes and I talk about what it was like, and I talk about mistakes that were made and how I would do it differently. And I share that with my students, and so do the other professors, because they have that experience. Another strength of our program are our program initiatives, and we have a lot, and we're creating more. I was talking to a professor 2 minutes before I was able to join your Zoom, and I'll tell you a little bit about what he's doing. But he said, let's start a new initiative, and he sent me what he thought would be a good initiative, and I said, I'm in. That's great. Let's do it. All the faculty think like that. We don't think about let's continue to do things the way they've always been done. No, no, no. We're always thinking about let's try something new. Let's try something different. And then the third aspect of our program that I think makes us a very strong program is we have internships. So we work with our students and our partners to have jobs that our students can go to while they're still studying for their degrees. So they may work in a medical examiner's office, actually participating in performing autopsies. They may go out on a homicide scene with a police department. They may go down to the FBI forensic laboratory. That's the building that you see on the top of your screen. They may go down to that laboratory and work with a forensic chemist or a forensic biologist, analyzing evidence that was sent in from a crime scene. These internships are worth their weight in gold, because they give students experience that they would never otherwise have. So we form very close relationships with, we call them partners, police departments, crime labs, medical examiner's office. And through these partnerships, we're able to offer our students these internships, which give them really the experience that they can put on their resumes, that make them very marketable for the job once they graduate. Oh, next slide, please. And again, I mentioned that our faculty are really I think, one of the biggest keys to our successful program. Next slide, please. We've all had that work experience, bringing it to George Mason, and so do our adjuncts. When I do talk to the students when they come to the office and I'm there and I ask them why they came to Mason, almost all of them will say, because we want to work with somebody who's worked in the field. We want to work with somebody that's been out there and they can tell us what it's really like to be a forensic scientist. Next slide, please. Let me tell you about some of the forensic labs that we have that our students absolutely love. Next slide, please. One of the initiatives that we have is what you're looking at here is our forensic DNA laboratory. I'm so excited about this laboratory. It took a while to get it. We actually we had it approved in about 2018 and started to bring in the state-of-the-art equipment in 2019. And now it is a dedicated DNA laboratory, and our students learn how to analyze evidence just like they would do if they worked in a forensic DNA laboratory. So everything that they are taught, everything that they learn is based on how it's done in the real world. We have a smaller DNA lab because of the contamination effect. They learn about contamination. They learn about everything that will impact a DNA analysis. And that's important because we know that all of our students who graduate from our program, who will go on to work in a DNA lab as an analyst, whether in chemistry or biology, they will have to testify in court on cases. And their ability to explain what their training was when they were going to the university is very important. And if their training is sloppy or it was incomplete, that will impact how they come across to the jury. So they have to be trained correctly. We have 3 DNA experts in our program. One of the experts came from the FBI. Another expert came from a state laboratory where they did DNA analysis on a daily basis. And another DNA professor was a DNA lab manager for several years. So they all have this experience that they share with the student. Oh, next slide, please. And these, again, the work standards and the requirements that are taught to the students are those practiced in accredited labs. And so they put on all of their PPE, they wear their masks, they wear their gloves, they practice all the protocol that they would have to practice when they are inside a forensic laboratory. Next slide, please. Another initiative that we have that is actually fairly new is called the Farrell Laboratory. And Farrell is a company that sells 3D scanning that can be used to measure crime scenes. And it's one of the systems that many of the law enforcement agencies in the United States use when they go out to measure a homicide scene. How big was the bedroom? How big was the kitchen? How big was the house itself where the murder occurred? They also use it to measure accident scenes. How long did the car skid before it went off the road? Where did the cars end up? So it is a fantastic 3D scanning that can be used in forensic science. And one of the things that we're doing now is this, which I'm really excited about. This semester, which started in January of this year, we just started a new course for graduate students. And we're teaching graduate students how to use what's called the Farrell equipment, the 3D scanning equipment. It's technical and you have to have training in it, but we're teaching them because 2 of our professors traveled to a Farrell training lab. They were trained to become train the trainers, so that when they came back in January, they're now certified to teach our students how to use the Farrell equipment, to be certified to use the Farrell equipment. So when they leave, they put that on their CV, and police departments, the military, other agencies will want to hire them because they're already certified and trained on how to use this equipment. Again, it's one of the most exciting developments in 3D scanning of crime scenes. Next slide, please. This is an example of what I mean by 3D scanning. In the olden days, in the past, when a forensic scientist, a crime scene investigator went to a crime scene, they drew their drawings. They made their drawings of the crime scene by hand. And we still train our students to do that. But the new science is with these scanners. And in the olden days, the crime scene analysts would use tape measures. What's the distance between this door and that door? And the amount of error could be up to an inch and maybe even bigger than an inch. And when you go to court, you can't tell the jury or the judge, my drawing is pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. but the error is up to maybe about an inch, maybe 18 inches, where it could be off. Well, heck, that's not good. That's a lot of room to make an error. So with the 3D scanners and using Faro, the error rate is extremely small, and you can measure a house, you can measure a crime scene in a very short period of time, and then be finished with it. So being able to have this on their CV as students is incredible. And one of the other initiatives we're starting with Farrell in the next winter, coming up in December and January, is 2 of our professors are designing a course, a Faro measurement course, and they will be teaching police detectives and police officers in Northern Virginia how to use these scanners, Faro scanners, and they will certify them to use them when they go to crime scenes or accidents. Next slide, please. The Faro equipment can be so small that you can hand carry it if you have to go to a scene. So it's not necessarily a big, heavy piece of equipment that you have to drag along with you. It's very portable. And one of the things that we're thinking about doing is using the Faro to do scans of human skulls, because we offer forensic artistry in our program. And one of the things that's lacking in forensic science is to be able to scan a human skull. And we're going to use some of our equipment to do that. Next slide, please. And this is, you can see here, this is one of the ways that we're planning to use the Faro, is to scan a human skull. And that's going to become part of our Body Farm initiative. Okay, next slide, please. In about 2017, my faculty explained to me that they were teaching our students how to process a crime scene, but they were doing it inside of a classroom. And they didn't think that was very good. And I didn't think that was very good either. So we began to look around and say, if we're going to do a really good job with teaching our students how to go inside of a crime scene and collect the physical evidence, we've got to be able to take them to a house someplace. And we have to be able to set up the house to make it look like different crimes occurred inside the house, and teach them how to process a crime scene. So you are looking at our crime scene house, which is right across from our campus in Fairfax, Virginia. And that car you see there does not run, but our students learn to process that too, because how many times is a vehicle part of a crime scene? Well, all the time. So they learn how to get into small spaces inside the car and process a vehicle for physical evidence as well. So let me take you inside the crime scene house. Next slide, please. This is an example of how we set up several rooms inside the house. We have 8 rooms that we can use to set up different scenes. And this is one of our dummies. It's a murder scene. And the students are actually processing the scene. And what we're able to do from a distance is we have one little room inside the crime scene house that has nothing but cameras and TV sets inside. So we can stay out of the room and we can watch the students via these cameras to make sure that they're doing it correctly and they're taking it very seriously. Next slide, please. Again, this is a scene where the student is learning trajectory. You can see one of the dummies is holding a fake gun, and the mat over the bed is a trajectory map, and then you have the victim laying on the bed, and they have the trajectories in place so that they can measure where the bullet would have gone. So our students are learning that as well. Next slide, please. And again, this scene, this is actually the scene that was set up to portray a child abduction scene. And the bed is where the child was taken from. The parent in this case, or the mom, was also injured. And the other thing that we've started to do recently is we've hidden evidence in these crime scenes, because we have to teach our students how do you look for drugs? How do you look for contraband? How do you look for things? And where do you look? So some of the items that you see sitting on the dresser or behind the woman in the pink shirt are actually little hiding places where we expect the students to be thorough and complete and look for the evidence. So each room is set up differently based on real life scenarios. And how do we know that? Because all of us have worked in real crime scenes, so we know what they look like. So we base how we set up these crime scenes based on real life scenes that we've all been to. Next scene, please. Or next slide, please. This is our drone initiative. This is very exciting. We started this not realizing that this was going to get as big as it's gotten. And it's huge because drones are really one of the newest pieces of instrumentation for forensic programs. And currently we have a fleet actually of 7 drones, and this was taken off of the front page of the newspaper when our drone professors were called in to help with a ship that had lost its load, and it wasn't able to move down the Chesapeake Bay. So they brought in forensic drone handlers to help guide the other ships to know where to take off the big containers, if they were safe to take off, how to take them off. These are the drones that they were using to be able to help the U.S. Coast Guard to do that. Our students, our professor in this course is very innovative. And he's also a drone pilot. He's also an airplane pilot. But one of the things that he's designed in his forensic drone course, if you can believe this, it's very exciting. The graduate students will take his course, and then at the end of the course, they are eligible, if they pass the course, they are eligible to take the FAA, or Federal Aviation Administration test for drone pilots. And if they pass that test, they too will become an official certified forensic drone pilot. We've made that happen for our students. It was a lot of red tape. It was a lot of work, but the students walk away from this class becoming certified drone pilots. Can you imagine what that does to their CV? It's incredible. They bring this skill to their new jobs. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits of drones to forensic science? They're enormous. They're highly accurate instruments, and they can be used along with the Faro scanners to take measurements on over water, ground. We can even bring in ground penetrating radar, laser scanners. So they're very versatile, and they can go places where humans can't go. They're fast and simple to deploy. They're cost effective, because if we wanted to bring a helicopter into a crime scene or an accident scene, they cost in the United States about $3,000 an hour. And that's not including what people would have to pay the pilot. Again, they're extremely versatile. They can even operate in bad weather and carry heavy payloads, including a very wide range of sensors to include thermal, LiDAR, multispectral, and so forth. one of the initiatives that I'm going to show you here next is how we intend to use drones on the body farm. Next slide, please. And this is our most recent initiative, and this is the Forensic Science Anthropological Research Facility. It's known as a body farm. And there are 7 body farms in the United States. There's one in Australia, and there's one in Canada. We are the 8th in the United States. Earlier, I said the world. We're the 8th in the United States. This is 5 acres of wooded land in Manassas, Virginia, at our Science and Tech campus. And what you're looking at the outside 5 acres. The inner 1 acre will be where we will place our first donor, human donor. Our human donor, our first one, is scheduled for next month. And we already have collaborations with our other researchers and with law enforcement about the type of research that we are going to do with our first human donors. One of the first things that we had to do on the body farm to prepare for our human donor is we had to do a lot of soil research and water research. We had to bring in the drones and have them fly over this 5 acres. We have to see what this ground is like before we bring in a human donor, because all those changes we want to calculate and monitor. So in order to do that, we have to know what the ground, the air, the water, the predatory behavior of animals is like before we place the donors. We will use the body farm for research. We will use the body farm for training, especially, for example, with canine or cadaver scent dogs, and we will use it to teach our classes. Our students are so excited, they cannot wait to get out to the body farm and start the research and start their classes out there. Next slide, please. This just gives you an example of how wooded the area is. We set up some yellow flags to give an example of where we think we might place a human donor. Right now, we are planting flowers out there. One of the reasons we're doing that is we have a honeybee research project that we're going to start, because honeybees are good vectors for finding human remains. So they need to be attracted to flowers. So we're planting the right flowers out there. But it's a nondescript 1 acre of property where we will be placing our first donor. Ultimately, we probably will have 3 or 4 human donors out there for research purposes. Next slide, please. We set up this display just to replicate how a crime scene might be. These are not real human bones, but again, just to show the students what it might look like, where they're using the tense and the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 to identify where human remains have been found. Next slide, please. I mentioned the honeybee as part of the body farm research. We have learned as we proceed with moving the body farm initiative along, that honeybees are amazing little critters. And we already have honeybees out at the body farm, but they're used for something else, having nothing to do with the body farm. But through research and talking with other people, we have learned that bees can fly within about a 5-mile radius, and they will land on certain things within that 5-mile radius, and that can be a human donor. So that's why we're putting flowers in the body farm, to attract them to the body farm. And then what we will be doing is we will be monitoring the nectar. If we find that there's evidence of human decomp, that tells us that the search for a human donor in that area can be reduced to about area of about 5 miles. Now, why is that important? I'll tell you why. I have been out on a number of searches over my career where they tell you to search with dogs, and it may be, you know, a 10-acre lot, even a 5-acre lot. You have no idea where to start. You have absolutely no idea. And the dogs are not programmed to do to search that size of a lot. So we're looking for ways to narrow down where the canine dogs can search for human remains. And we have learned that one of the ways that we're going to research it is through the honeybees. Again, if we can say there's evidence of human decomp within 5 miles of this radius, we can handle a 5-mile search. It's the 10, it's the 20-acre lots that are so demanding and so so unsuccessfully searched when you're looking for either a homicide victim or somebody that walked away and just died. So we're excited about the honeybee research. We're excited about what it's going to tell us. And we're collaborating with different agencies on the honeybee research to provide training for canine dogs, cadaver dogs, and their handlers to incorporate the honeybee research with how to train a dog to look for human remains. What we know about dogs is we know that their ability to smell things is far exceeds the human being's ability to do it. We still don't know why. We still don't know the chemistry of why that is. So forensic chemistry is going to be a huge part of our research out at the Body Farm. In fact, we're getting ready today and tomorrow to initiate a major research project at the Body Farm to include chemistry, volatiles, human scent, and canines, because that is a very frequently requested type of research and training, requested by our law enforcement partners and requested by students as well. Next slide, please. So that's our forensic science program at George Mason University. I wanted to finish in time or on time to be respectful of your heavy schedule that I know you have today. But I also wanted to make sure that I could answer any questions or take any thoughts that you might have. I wish I were there in person to see all of you, but in place of that, I hope I see you as you ask any questions, and feel free to ask anything that you like. Nothing is certainly off limits.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
It's really a challenger for us. So after we saw how far you are and all the installation you have, so we are able to have an idea about our challenger in the future. It's not easy, I can tell you. So I will open for the questions and
I wanted to ask you, you said that when you worked at the Bureau, you were a profiler and you like to analyze the crime scene in different ways. And I'm really interested in this career path, and I was wondering, what did you study and what did you do to get there?
Okay, thank you. That is a great question. So I am not a science person. I'm the director of the program, but I'm not a forensic scientist. I am a behavioral scientist, and I studied psychology, and then I got a degree in mental health counseling, and then I went on for a PhD. But here's what the FBI requires for profilers. When I When I went into the FBI many years ago, I had always wanted to know about what goes on in people's heads when they were committing violent crimes. And I was thinking like that when I was 5 years old. And to be honest with you, I scared the hell out of my mom, because at 5 years old, I'm asking, what do you think goes on in somebody's head when they're committing a violent crime? But I was interested in that. And so when I got into the FBI, I volunteered to do a lot of the unusual interviews with people that we had to talk to. I would raise my hand to do those interviews. And then I heard about the behavioral science program the FBI offers, and I got involved with that. And through the behavioral science program, they offered a lot of individual training in forensic science, psychiatry, sociology, medicine. They gave us all the training on what we would need to do to be a profiler. But before I got accepted in the profiling unit, I had to work as an agent for 10 years in the field. And then I had the experience to come back and work as a profiler. And then it's years of training, classroom training, and then working with a mentor to actually go out in the field. So it's a lot of background and training. They don't require a certain major, but my interest was always in psychology.
No more questions? I want to add that we have a memorandum of understanding with George Mason, and
Yes.
I hope that in the future, we can share so students and professors in the way to increment this cooperation. And for me, was honored to have you here today. As I told you, it gave us an idea of our challenger, what you are intending to do. It's a long way that we have to travel to get there, but it's better to know what you are expecting for, and before you start something. And I wish to thank you very much. What was a pleasure to have you here today with us. As I told you, we have more than 400 people that interested on this workshop. We are we are transmitting now by YouTube channel, and we will upload it in our we have let me say a way that the people can see and how long they want, and I will send you the address that you can see it and show you for your colleagues how it was here in Rio today.
Thank you. It's my honor. And from all the faculty at George Mason, to all of you there in the room and on YouTube, we send you our warmest regards, and we look forward to more conversations. And when we get virtual reality in our classrooms and at the Body Farm, look at all the opportunities to collaborate. Wouldn't that be wonderful? So I know we're going to stay in touch, and I'm certainly going to look forward to that with you, your faculty, and all your students. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.